Okay, so I did a video a couple of weeks ago on curve chart apps in Refinitiv Icon, showing what some of the differences are between the web client versions and the desktop versions. That video spurred more questions about some of the other apps, hence this video. But before I get started, if you haven't seen the other video, at the end I think I called it an infomercial, introducing Metastock Xenith, which is a white-labeled, retail-only version of Icon. Just explaining what it is, who it's for, what some of the key differences are from the parent program. I've been told that attention spans aren't so great these days. So with that in mind, rather than at the end, I decided that I would mention at the beginning. If you haven't seen Icon/Xenith before, you'd be doing yourself a disservice, at least in my opinion, if you didn't at least check it out. So with that said, I will put a link to the evaluation offer from Metastock, which I mentioned in the other video, in the description of this one. So you can check it out if so inclined. So if you haven't seen the Economic Monitor app in Icon, this is what it looks like when you first open it. In my opinion, the web client version and the desktop version look virtually identical, at least aesthetically. There are a few differences in functionality, and I'll try to point out at least a few of those here. But suffice it to say that the web version and the desktop version are pretty close. You access the web client version from the main menu, just like you normally would in the desktop version under monitoring. And this is it right here. The standard view is what they call a grid layout, which stacks the data stream according to your local time in linear succession. And this whole page automatically scrolls, so it's always putting the upcoming data front and center. There is another view, which they call the calendar view, that actually has three flavors. The first one being the day view, which I personally don't find to be all that useful because it's so similar to the standard grid layout. And the other two being the week view, which stacks the data of the current week from left to right, and the month view, which I personally find the most useful because it allows you to look forward as well as backward. So if you miss something, you can just go back to that day, click on it, and revisit whatever you missed. All right? So we'll go back to the standard grid view. Up top here, you'll see that the standard stream is for economic events, which is basically everything. If you want to see just central bank and political stuff, that's here. So things like elections, Fed meetings, minutes, any scheduled Fed speaking engagements, that's all here. And then government debt auctions, which of course is your treasury auctions and any central bank paper auctions around the world. Over here on the left is something that I think is the most useful, and this is where you can narrow the field a little bit. As you can see from all the flags, you're getting everything in the standard stream, every country in the world, every piece of data. So if you want to narrow that view a little bit, this is where you do it. So you could take it down from the whole world to individual regions, or you can even select and deselect individual countries here. So definitely very useful. A few differences between the web client version and the desktop version. You've no doubt seen this giant disclaimer here at the top of the page in the web version claiming that the stream may be delayed up to 3 seconds. Personally, I have not found that to be the case. Of course, it's going to be highly dependent on where you are and your ISP. Have I seen it be a half a second or a second maybe? I don't know. Unfortunately, there's no way to empirically evaluate it because you can't be logged into the web client version and the desktop version at the same time. But suffice it to say, I think for most of you, like me, you'll find it to be a non-issue. What you may not like, though, is that in the web client version, all of the analyst information is missing. So stuff like the polling information, everybody contributing, what the count is, what they think the minimum number is going to be, the maximum number, any predicted surprises, All that stuff, unfortunately, is not present in the web version. Thankfully, though, what is present are all the links to the press releases, which take you directly to the source of the data. So if you want to drill down a little deeper, this is where you do that, and it just links you directly to wherever the data is sourced from. I almost forgot to point out one more useful feature which is present in both the desktop version and the web version, and that's the countdown timer. It's just what you think. It's a timer that counts down to the release of the data. It actually starts at 5 minutes out with a green background, and then counts down to inside of 1 minute out when it changes yellow, and then inside of 10 seconds it changes red. You might be saying, what do I need a countdown timer for? I know when the data is coming out. What makes it useful, in my opinion, is if you have the app open on your desk, you're doing other things, time gets away from you, you forgot that there's data coming that you're interested in, and just the fact that those colors pop up, they tend to draw your attention to remind you that you might want to pay attention because your data is coming. So that's pretty much it in terms of the really important features, at least by my measure. Next up, I'll show you how to drill down into a specific piece of data and chart the history of it. All right, so when you click on any individual data metric in the Economic Monitor app stream, in the web client, it automatically launches another browser window, which takes you to another app, which allows you to chart and extract the data. But before we do that, let's go back a little bit in history. I happen to know that the 14th of last month was CPI day. So we're going to choose 14th of November to the 14th of November. So just the one day. I click update. And as you can see, it's giving us the entire stream from our requested date. Let's scroll forward a little bit to 8:30 Eastern, which of course is when CPI data always lands. So here's our data here. And we're going to request year-over-year headline CPI. Click that. And as you can see, it automatically launched another browser window, taking you to the Economic Indicators app. All right. First thing to note up here, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately in the web client version, all the polling and analyst information, predicted surprises, things like that are still missing. So keep that in mind. You'll note that on launch, the app defaults to a line plot, 2 years worth, where you can mouse over the various release dates and see the data. Pretty standard array of icon periodicities down here, ranging from 3 months to 20 years. Of course, the max is going to vary depending on what the data is. You can also choose a histogram plot, and you do that here. Just for fun, let's choose max. So as you can see, it's now loaded all of the data for headline year-over-year CPI for the US, which goes back to January of 1914. So tremendous amount of data. Should you want to work with the data in table form, instead of a chart, you do that here. And you can see all the data is still loaded all the way back to the beginning. You probably won't want to work with it that way and instead export it to Excel. And we're going to get to that shortly. But for now, let's go back to the standard chart view and back to the default 2-year line chart. And I'll show you how to plot comparisons similar to those that I'm often posting on the Twitter stream. I've often said I don't think there's much value in memorizing RIC codes. The search engine is pretty intuitive, so if you just start typing, chances are you're going to find what you're looking for. So I'm going to start typing US CPI, and right away I could see I've found what I'm looking for, which is year-over-year core CPI. So here it is, less food and energy. Go ahead and add that. And as you can see, you're just going to get a line in a different color, and you could still hover over the release dates and now see both bits of data. All right. Someone's going to ask how many plots for comparison you could do in this app. I wondered the same thing before doing the video, so I tried it, and I tapped out at 8. So I know for sure you can at least do 8. Beyond that, I have no idea. Why anyone would ever want to compare 8 or more pieces of economic data all at once on a chart is beyond me. But if that's your thing, knock yourself out. Another question you might ask is, can you compare non-economic data instruments in this app? And the answer is yes, but there's a few things you need to be aware of, especially if you're going to export to Excel. First and foremost, you don't have any control over periodicity in this app. The time horizon is anchored by whatever data you start with. So in this case, it's monthly, obviously. Any price-based data that you add is always going to give you daily closing prices. So when you're mixing and matching, as I call it, like that, you may find it more useful to use the standard charting app, which is here. There you have total control over time horizon. So if the econ data is monthly, you can normalize the price data to monthly. If it's weekly, to weekly, and so on. So just keep that in mind, especially if you're exporting to Excel. Despite that, we're going to add a price-based comparison here anyway. A lot of our members trade the ES intraday, so let's go ahead and add a continuous ES contract. And as you can see, it's giving you a plot of daily closing ES prices. All right. Now to export to Excel, whether in this app or any other, you'll generally find the icon for Excel somewhere in the upper right-hand corner. And true to form, here it is here. And when you click on it, it's going to ask you if you want to download 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or all of the data. We'll just stick with the 2 years, and we'll go ahead and download it, and then I'll show you what it looks like in Excel. All right, so pretty straightforward here. This is what it looks like when you export from this particular app to Excel. Obviously, this header information here changes a little bit depending on which app you're exporting from. Just a couple things to point out. First, regarding the mixing of price-based data with the economic data, and the economic data being the periodicity driver. The closing ES continuous contract prices that you see here are the closing prices only on the day of the data, as to be expected. The only other thing to point out, I don't know whether it's something that I did wrong or if it's a function of the fact that on this particular machine I'm using OpenOffice rather than Excel proper, but when I did export, the dates didn't carry over. So the way that I got these in here is I copied and pasted them from the data table in the app. In my experience, little fudging like that is something that you have to do from time to time when you're exporting in various places around the platform. All right? So that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments or email me. I am definitely not the expert on this stuff, but if I can help in any way, I'm happy to do it. And see you on the next one.